Hello, boils and ghouls. You are now tuned in to PVD Horror Podcast. Pleasant screams.
Hey, what's going on? You're now tuned in to the PVD Horror Podcast. I'm Brandon, and I'm joined by my co-host Dave, and we have our buddy Anthony from Buttonwoods Brewery, the #1 bartender at our movie nights. You know what I mean? He keeps it real with us. He's a big fan of The Last of Us, so we had to bring him on to talk Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2, Through the Valley. It was a wild night, boys. It was a wild night.
Wow, what happened?
Yeah, and everybody we got to bear with Anthony for tonight because he's having some technical issues, but we're going to do our best to make this conversation work. It's either one or the other.
I can see a frozen version of me.
There you go.
Hey,
the most progress is made. Okay,
exactly. We'll roll with it, right?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So, Anthony, you're a big fan of the series and also the video game. So I thought it would be cool to have you on, sit there and talk about the show. Like we said, again, Dave has never played the game before, any game. So we're just kind of staying in the realms of this episode. And, for anyone that hasn't watched this episode, please just shut the video off.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big episode.
Spoiler heavy here for this episode. Yes.
All right. So a lot was going on Sunday. We had Easter.
Yeah,
420 and WrestleMania going on.
Yeah.
I kind of fucking spaced out and forgot that this was even coming on, so it was kind of like, you had a lot going on. You had the NBA playoffs on also.
Yep. Celtics had a big game.
So after WrestleMania was over, I fucking went to HBO, put it on, and I'm like, all right, we're locked in. See, episode 2, Through the Valley. And
what a way to end your night.
Yeah, I was fucking tired.
I was actually surprised that they aired it because,
yeah.
Well, HBO used to do a thing where, like, for a bigger episode, if it was like a big holiday weekend, they just would skip a week.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what I was thinking too. I was like, that's why I didn't even think it was going to be on. So I was just like, all right. But I think it's different now. So it's Max, it's streaming, like it's not live anymore like that. So I don't know. Maybe it comes on HBO, right? Live still or no?
Yes, it does. And can I tell you a funny thing? So I didn't catch it Sunday night. I watched it last night.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, I couldn't catch it on demand in its regular form. I had to watch the sign language version of it. So the entire episode had a guy in the corner signing everything that was happening. It was actually hilarious watching him sign the clickers, like noises and stuff. Like he was acting all animated and everything. It was hilarious, which was such like a wild contrast to the events that happened in that episode. So like I'm trying to like get in the moment, and then you just see this guy. He's like, oh, like in the corner. It was hilarious. But that was my experience with it last night.
Oh man. That sounds like an experience in itself,
Hey, if you guys can catch the sign language version, you really should watch it just to see this guy. It's hilarious.
Yeah, so the episode itself, like I said, it's called Through the Valley. It starts off, with our new friend Abby having a nightmare about finding her dad's dead body. The video game shows everything from that sequence, in the game of her finding her father, but it doesn't. But the video game goes into more detail of her going through the door and finding the father dead, seeing the brains and everything on the floor, and her crying and everything. And so in this episode, they did a little different. They had a little double. Her kind of talking to herself, and then she didn't go through. She went through the door, but it didn't show anything. So now, what did you take away from that opening scene?
Me or
Tony.
Okay. Yeah. So at first I was kind of annoyed because as one of the annoying game people, I was like, why are you showing this so soon? Because like you don't learn about what happens to Abby until like near the end. You don't learn
Yeah.
who her father was.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they did that because I don't know how online you guys are, but the actress who played Abby in the game got a lot of death threats and hate, like right off the rip.
Mm.
And I think they were just kind of like, okay, well, we need to establish a motive now so it doesn't get as bad as time goes on. But
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, okay. Like, I get why they did it, but
Yeah.
I kind of didn't like that. But I loved everything else about the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Dave, for you, what was
Yeah,
your
I mean, in the back of my mind, just remembered your comments from last week about
Mm-hmm.
how like they're kind of rushing some things. So in my head, as we're watching this whole thing, I'm kind of knowing without knowing that like some of this stuff is coming way early. So I'm like trying to figure out why that is as I'm watching it. But at the same time, just that opening scene, I mean, I kind of don't love the way that played out. I felt like they're probably, just hearing you describe how the video game showed, I would love to see it a different way.
Yeah.
But you know, just having that little build up, and then you get the bigger thing in the end, which we'll get to what with like her big monologue towards the end. You kind of
Mm-hmm.
walk through everything that's kind of fueling her. I guess it all leads up to that, and obviously they're kind of trying to show this like inner conflict that she's battling. I mean, yeah, it was fine. It kind of after the episode's done, you're like, oh wow, this whole episode was just a build up to this moment that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It was nuts. But yeah, it takes us back. Like I said, she just had that nightmare. She wakes up and she's sitting in the cabin with her friends, and she wakes up and she sees Owen and the rest of her team, and they're in a cabin that's overlooking Jackson at this point, so they're real close now. And so like I said earlier before, for the first episode, we're moving fast. We're moving fast here, and we're already here. Tony, what was it like for you to even see that, we're already going into Abby's story for that, just like not even just from that opening nightmare scene, but just now that it's reality?
I mean, I'm excited because I really love
Hmm.
Caitlin as Abby. Um, I know there's been some criticism that she's not as bulky or
Yeah.
like she's not as built because in the game she's a fucking behemoth. But like, I don't care. She's such a great actor, and I think
yeah,
like on a more meta level, learning that she had filmed the first scene, I think like from the first episode, the graveyard scene, right after her mother died in real life.
Mm.
So like she just like that was like very raw to like see that like rage and anger. And so I like that we're seeing more of Abby right off the bat. I don't know if we're gonna keep seeing her
Mm.
because like her and Ellie sort of go in a different path after what happens here. So like I hope they kind of like split up what they're doing because I know you had said they're kind of rushing it.
Hmm.
I don't know if because they already announced the season three.
Yeah, and
I
that's what I
feel
was
like
getting ready to say.
they're gonna be splitting the game in two. I think.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but
yeah, that's what I think too. Like they're definitely going to split the season. I'm surprised they're not just going to say, "Hey, season 2, part 2," and they're just going to label it a whole nother season because it's like, "Hey, we're moving fast here already." You know what I mean? And we only got 8 episodes in this season, so right now we're at 2. It's moving. We're moving, and I agree. I think that Abby's probably not going to be on the screen for a little bit. I think they're going to do a lot of the backstories. I had touched on that last episode where they kind of focused on Eugene a little bit, and like I didn't think they would do that, but they did a little something different where it's like they had Joel kill Eugene. So they're gonna have a whole episode of that, So I think that's what probably we get for the next episode to kind of like focus it up and then kind of get away from where we are right now.
and yeah, to give everyone a breather
Yeah,
from that big event that happens. But
yeah,
yeah, it's going to be interesting because Abby, for viewers who remember like Walking Dead, it's kind of like Negan killing Glenn, right?
yeah.
a beloved character, you have to have a redemption story. So I'm super curious, without knowing anything more from like the game storyline, how she's going to get her redemption, if the audience is going to eventually like learn to love her, or if if we're supposed to continue to hate her. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where we go with this with Eugene, because if I remember right, in the game, like he just kind of dies of natural causes, and that's kind of they brush it off. But I think knowing that either Joel killed him or had something to do with his death, I feel like I think you had said like we're probably gonna get like a bottle episode about that. Probably around like halfway through the season, I think, because we did a flashback last season too with
Bill,
Ellie and Marlene. Remember they had the Left Behind episode where it was Ellie and her friend in the mall. I feel like we're gonna get something like that maybe halfway through.
Yeah. And the episode that they had with Bill also, so I can see them showcasing something like that also. But yeah, at this time, the team, they're overlooking Jackson, and they notice that, they have a lot of veterans out there, and they have a large patrol squad, and that they're outnumbered. They were sitting there trying to like come up with a plan, and then Owen had stated, he's not 100% on the same page as Abby. And his main thing was, hey, he was trying to convince her to go back because they felt that they would be the only ones getting killed in this, mission. So,
that scene, that scene to me was like, all right, well, maybe they will end up going back, and maybe we'll kind of like have them just kind of like almost stalking them, waiting for this opportunity. So to kind of see how this ends up playing out was surprising to me, because I thought that scene with Owen was going to be more impactful to the outcome, against the outcome that we ended up getting. But I like I said, not knowing what the future is going to bring, I feel like that's going to somehow come back at some point. Owen like not agreeing with the plan of the group at some point. That'd be my guess.
We've had concepts of a plan. No, but I think I like that like split between Owen and Abby, and I think you're right. I think we are going to see like some more of that maybe. But I also think, because it seems like both Abby and Ellie have like witnessed like the death of a father figure.
Yep.
Like we're probably going to see one of their significant others, like maybe Dina or Jesse, like kind of be that voice of reason to them too. Maybe, because there have been a lot of changes already, so it's like anything I'm saying is like, oh, probably not. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because they made so many changes, because it's like, hey, we have to make it work for a TV screen and for an hour episode. So we talked about this last time, Tony, about how Naughty Dog is just like so creative with writing. And, if they're not given that proper time, it's not going to go well, because look at the Uncharted film that came out years back. And Uncharted was a great game and had a great storyline, and it didn't hit the same because it was rushed. When we look at that same thing with, with Resident Evil. What'd you say?
Wait, did you watch the Uncharted movie? Because let me tell you, that was not a fun movie to watch.
Yeah, I seen it in the theaters opening night, and I'm a big fan. That's one of my favorite games also. So,
my condolences.
Yeah, very very let down.
Okay, I watched HBO Butcher Game of Thrones. You'll live. No, but sorry, go on.
So that I was saying, then the next scene, we jump into Jesse, arriving at Ellie's house, knocking on the door, getting her ready to go out for patrol, which is a little bit, different in the game. Well, it's the same, but it's just the timing's different. In the game, when we first start off, and you kind of get a little backstory of the game, we get the title screen, and then right after the title screen, we go into that scene. This is like so far down the road now. It's like out of place. So what did you think about it, Anthony, of them placing this scene at this point already?
I mean, again, it was fine. Like it was feel like it didn't detract from any of the main story beats. And I think it's really so it was when she went out with Jesse, I really think they're trying to establish Jesse as more of a character.
Yeah.
Um, like we do see him quite a bit in the game as well, but I think we need audiences to kind of like TV audiences. They're very different from the game audience because
Yeah.
we spent like 20, 30 hours, whereas the show is 8.
Yeah.
So we need to like really establish who these people are. And also, I think the actor who's playing Jesse, I don't remember who played him in the game, but this actor on the show is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's fun, because it's like when this scene happened, it stays right on the point of the game with the jokes of Jesse going into messing with Ellie, hearing about what happened the night before, or them kissing and stuff like that. And so it was just like he kept on poking fun at her, like, "Oh, get your girlfriend," and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And then they also take a point to stop where it's like they talk about their relationship, like the state of Ellie and Joel's relationship, and that's a little different from the video game because at that time, I think it was Marlene, right? She has that conversation with Ellie, not Jesse.
Yeah, or it was either that or Dina.
No, it was Marlene. So,
Oh,
because right after that scene, like she pulls her to the side, and then so Ellie kind of snaps on her a little bit too, but it's like it's not like into detail, like however she was able to do this with Jesse a little bit and kind of saying, yeah, me and Joel we're good. Now, what
oh,
did
a
you
lot
think?
less too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, looking from the outside, Dave, and you just being a
Yes.
fan of the show, how did that
Yeah.
scene come across for you?
So first off, just to like Tony's point, I really like Jesse
Yeah.
in the show. Like the actor that plays him, I think is super likable. Is like I love the playfulness between the two characters. So I think that says something about just the dynamics between them and how they get along. I really want to see Jesse have like a bigger role. So it was kind of cool having that scene there because it kind of gives you that idea that maybe, we'll get to see more of him or learn more about him. In retrospect, after finishing the episode, that scene is also really sad because it's Ellie's moment of being like, yeah, me and Joel have this stuff going on, but like that's me and Joel, and he's always going to be Joel to me. And like, I feel like she's almost forgiving him in that moment and like ready to reconnect. Timing just isn't good. He already left with Dina, right? So she's like, damn, because that she was going to go with him. And that would have changed everything if she did.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, it sucks that like that was her realization and it comes a little too late for her.
Yeah. Like I said, Jesse, he's a great character in the show.
Yeah.
Anthony, what did you think about him in the game? Because I really didn't really care for him much in that game.
I didn't think about him at all.
Yeah.
I didn't. I think the game focuses more on Dina. Like the scene where they're in the 7-Eleven getting hot. That's Dina in the game and not Jesse.
Yep.
But I think I really like what they're doing with like the town of Jackson. Sort of the town itself is like its own character, if that makes sense. Excuse me, like it has its own politics and it has like its own way of being run. And Ellie kind of says like everyone knows you're going to be in charge one day.
Yeah.
And so I really like that. There's kind of like already like an established hierarchy.
Yeah.
Because then eventually when we get to it, like Tommy goes into like how the town's going to defend itself against raiders or infected or whatever. And like they all have like their own roles in place. And I really like that aspect of it. I really like that they're doing a lot more world building because I feel like the game didn't do a lot of that.
Yeah.
The game just kind of it was more character driven, which is great. It worked. But I like how the show is sort of establishing that this is more than just Joel, Ellie, and like the rest of the happy gang. There's a lot more to like society and functioning like after everything.
That's a great point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I told Dave, most of the game is like it's just you're out there. It's just you and Dina And it's cool because you have to sit there and make that world comfort for like the viewers watching it on TV. And I think that, HBO and Naughty Dog definitely do a great job on building on that. And so, like you had just stated, things kind of unfold a little different here. At this point in time, we have Jesse out with Ellie still, and he had just stated that, oh, Dina went out on patrol with Joel. And that did not happen in the game. Joel goes out on patrol with Tommy. And so um, we have, so Tommy was back focusing on more of the town council, like, that Tony just was talking about. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? But at the same time, I'm like, all right, let me back up because once again, it's Naughty Dog and HBO. I trust them. So I'm not gonna sit there and lose my fucking mind over it. Tony, what did you think about it when you seen that transition? Like when it was like something different, when it was Dina and Joel out.
So I think I even though I'm annoying about like changing because like
Mm,
if you've ever watched House of the Dragon with me, you'll know I'm really fucking annoying about that kind of thing. I'm sorry, language,
mm,
but when I watch like I don't know, something about The Last of Us is just different, and I think it's because I recognize that like the people that are watching it, 9 out of 10 of them are never going to play the game. They're never going to touch it, and
yep,
that's fine. And I think you need to make a story that's palatable for that audience too. So I think as long as it works and as long as it's like it works on a narrative level, I'm cool with any change they make, so long as it's
yeah,
not too drastic. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
yeah,
Um, all that being said, too, I noticed like in episode one, they really sort of put a focus on Joel and Dina being friendly with each other,
yeah,
and that's a bit of a change too. But I really like how like Joel is sort of like asking like it's sort of like the daughter-in-law like
yeah.
is like asking for her like advice like how do I deal with my fucking kid like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that they started doing that dynamic. I don't think something tells me that's not going to be going on much longer, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not, yeah, like you said, that was special because it's like, we don't have those things that we're like questioning in our own selves, like what's going on with them. And like this is like that little filter between the two of us to kind of get some backstory of like what Ellie's thinking about, or, if she's talking to someone, and that's what they had done with Catherine O'Hara's character also because she's not in the game. And so I like how they build this wall. So Dave, now how far now you being into it and not knowing anything about it, how do you feel about like the transitions of everything, like conversations that have been going on so far?
I mean, for me, I don't know any different. So
Yeah.
everything is kind of flowing up to this
Mm-hmm.
point. There's a part of this episode too at the very beginning where I'm like, still just feeling like I'm continuing from episode one, right? It's still
Mm-hmm.
like build up, build up, build up, which I think is actually perfect for what transpires with all the craziness, right? So
Yeah.
everything seems fine, and then something just hits. So like you're getting like the apology from the guy Seth, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
getting like the talk about the night before and all that stuff. So yeah, it's just a lot of build up, but it all is flowing, at a reasonable pace at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got the apology from Seth, which was basically spot on from the video game a little bit. I know that it was like pointed out a little bit that in the actual episode he has more of an apology. In the game, it's just kind of like, I'm sorry. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like being pushed. And then so in the episode, he's kind of like, I said something I shouldn't have said. And it's a little different confrontation. You know what I mean? I know that in the game, Ellie calls him a bigot. She didn't
Yeah.
call him a bigot in the
Yeah.
game. And then so Jesse was a little bit too close on the TV screen. He was a little further back in the game because Ellie turned around with the steak sandwiches, he says, "What's that?" And she goes, "Bigot sandwiches." So, So Jesse was locked in, kind of overheard the whole conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, they did a lot of things different. Now, Anthony, what did you think about that whole scene with Seth?
Oh, I mean, I was still kind of reeling from the fact that you're homophobic during an apocalypse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Like,
good
come
point.
on, dude.
crazy.
Like, come on. Like, I know it's for the game and all. Like, I know it's part of the writing, but it's like, dude, like, everyone is dead.
Yeah.
Like, everyone you love is dying. But I do want to highlight because I know David mentioned like how everything's flowing, and I feel like this season so far, we're only 2 episodes in,
Hmm.
is a bit different in the way it's progressing. Because like I feel like last season it was sort of like every episode was like the tragedy of the week. Like you,
Hmm.
every character you met, you were like, oh my god, this is a great story, and they're dead. And then like the next episode would be a new character, and they're
Yeah.
dead, and like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is like kind of like a lot. It seems to be like a longer and more drawn out
Hmm.
Hmm.
storyline, and I'm wondering how you guys feel about that. If you prefer that, or if you kind of like going back to
Mm.
the death of the week kind of format.
I think we touched on this a little bit the last episode. Just the first episode was good, but it was slow.
Hmm.
And yeah, I guess when you're used to the first season and the way that flows, like it is a change of pace. I guess I kind of like the faster storyline progression, but at the
Hmm.
same time it feels intentional. And like Brandon says, like, having the trust in the creators of the show, just because we kind of saw season one, we know what they're capable of. It's like having faith, like, oh, there's going to be a payoff here.
Hmm.
So I kind of guess that's where I'm at right now. But I mean, preference wise, I definitely like a little bit of the faster storyline with like the death of the week. I guess you would say like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy both, you know what I mean? And that's the thing, like being able to be looking at the screen and already kind of knowing what's going to happen. I think at the same time, I at the same points I can point out that this didn't happen, but it also keeps me on my toes, you know? So it's like
Mhm.
I'm grateful for that. And that also happens in this next part, you know, as, you know, Jesse and Ellie were walking, they were Jesse was supposed to go and switch off with Joel and Tommy. You know, that was supposed to be the team. But, you know, Jesse replied that in the game that he had something else that he had to do. He was supposed to go check on this. And he was saying, Ellie and Dina, can you guys do it? And so that's how we had gotten Ellie and Dina to go out on patrol, which had taken us already past where we're at because this is what set them up to get to the market scene last week. That's why I said when
Yeah.
they were by themselves. And Anthony, is it just me or like we feel that Ellie's just being like treated like a kid in this season?
Oh my god, it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah,
It's like it's both frustrating to watch her because Bella Ramsey's a great actor. Like they know what they're doing
yeah,
and they deliver everything perfectly. But it's also annoying because it's like sometimes at some point last week I wanted to be like Ellie, just fucking listen to your commander. But then
yeah.
the other part of me is like they literally can't die.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Well, from like infection. So I was like, I don't. Why are you babying her? And then it sort of implied that like it's because Joel will kill you
Yeah.
Yeah.
if anything happens to her.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think she was definitely babied a lot, like
Yeah.
so far, and I feel like it's not going to get any better at this point. The
No.
babying, I mean, is
Yeah.
you know,
And it's
Yeah.
coming out in like her personality, that babying, because she's like rebelling against it or like
Mm-hmm.
pushing back, but it almost looks childish too. It looks like immature the way she goes about it. Like when they're, in episode one where they're shooting and then she like starts screaming out loud how she's immune and just like it's like I just want to, push you guys away, or I want to like do the opposite of what you guys are all doing because it's pissing me off that you're overprotecting me.
Yeah. And like I
I mean,
said,
she
Dave, where we are now, like Anthony brought up about the 7-Eleven scene. Like I just said, you know, this was the buildup that they had chose to use in the game to get to the market scene. So we're
Yep.
already past that. So now we're splitting this up as a buildup to get to somewhere else. So now in that 7-Eleven when they found the weed and everything. That's why I told you about when they found out about Eugene. This is where they
right.
found about Eugene in the first time. And so it wasn't like that first quote before, like, you know what I mean, when Catherine O'Hara had stated something about him. They found the weed, they found the dog tags, and then they found out that he was a firefly. And so now I can see them in the show, they're using it as maybe this is why Joel had to put Eugene down. You know what I mean? I'm just
Yeah.
thinking out loud, you know what I mean? Because he was
Sure.
a firefly, and then like they're saying something happened, he went off the rails. But like Anthony said earlier, Eugene died of old age. How do you feel about this whole transition, Tony?
I'm very curious. Like I keep saying curious, but I am curious to see what happens because like we know Joel put him down, and I think Jesse had a really interesting line when or it might have been Joel when they were like, "Oh, Eugene, he turned. There was nothing they could do." And then
Hmm.
the camera kind of like pans over to Ellie, like an episode of The Office, because like there was something that they could have done if Joel didn't make his decision at the end of season one. Like she's like, oh, I think like internally she's like, yeah, actually we could have done something. We could have had a
Hmm.
cure.
Yeah.
Um, and I think like her sort of relationship with Joel being compromised because of that decision, like you can sort of still see the wheel spinning and her like coming out of that. And I don't know. I really like that little detail.
Yeah. And then we jump into some other scenes where it's a little bit different, where we go into Abby. You know, at that point in time, she sees them on the horses, but in the game, she just sees footprints. You know, and then she goes off to, you know, trying to follow them, and then we get into this whole thing where we see all the infected and clickers kind of like hibernating, which is definitely different in the game because in the game we're in the woods and then we just run into this like a few clickers and then they start like chasing her and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it's like and it gets all crazy. You run into some buildings and stuff. But what did you guys just take away from just seeing all those clickers like buried in the ground, just hibernating and just kind of like just sitting there?
That scene was like I wasn't sure if they were going to move. I thought they were
Mm,
frozen, and then when they start moving, it's like, oh shit, this is going to be scary, and what is going to happen here. Um, I thought it was kind of like a cool idea too. Just that whole visual of seeing all those clickers frozen and coming out of the snow. Like it was a very cool visual scene right there. So that
mm,
was interesting for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. And I noted on when I rewatched the episode this morning, there was like a scene where Jesse kind of explains like they're using the dead like
Hmm.
as hibernation, like as heat,
Mm,
like as insulation. And I was like,
Yeah.
I missed that the first time. So like,
Hmm.
but it kind of goes with like the meeting the stalker last episode, how like all the infected are getting smarter
yeah,
and they're able to plan and they're able to survive and outlast. And
that's wild.
I think, yeah, but the visuals just were so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, then we fall into that big chase scene, you know what I mean? And then we like just like I tell Dave, just being Abby in that scene and just running, it was just wild when you control these players and now you're seeing it play out on the screen. Like that scene when the fence was falling in and you had all the clickers trying to sit there and bite and like reach in and grab her. Like you're experiencing that. Like you're going through that whole situation and you're like running. Like if you fucking flip a fall, you're being attacked. Like Anthony, what was it like for you just to see that scene play out on the screen?
Even though I knew she was gonna be fine, I was still breathing heavily because like it's just so claustrophobic. And I don't know if that's like my own thing because it kind of completely different movie.
Hmm.
But it reminded me a lot of like the scenes from As Above, So Below when they're like in the catacombs and they're like I don't know if you guys have seen it, but they're
Yeah.
like yeah, when they're like going deeper and deeper into the caves, then they're getting smaller and tighter. And I was
Yeah.
just
Hmm.
like, oh god, this is like making me very upset.
Yeah.
So I was anxious for her, even though I knew I was like, she's gotta be fine.
Yeah.
But it was still just wild to watch.
Yeah. And then we're greeted by Joel that saves our life. You know what I mean? And that was big in the game. Like you just see the gun come out, boom, and then it just rings, and then you can't hear anything. It's just like in the game, and it's like, come on, let's go. And it plays out the same way. But like I said, it just in the video game, it's a little bit different because it's Tommy and Joel that save Abby, and now we see it a little bit different, you know. And so we're playing that whole scene out. But then we get like this big chunk that's totally different that wasn't in the game. We have the clickers that just went off and ran a whole different way, and they run into town. You know what I mean? So what was going through your head when you first seen that, Dave? Like how they just transitioned towards the camp?
Dude, that scene was absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
The action in that, the like, all right, in my head, I'm like, there's no way this town's surviving this. Like, I was expecting nobody to survive. I thought everybody was going to be dead that was there. It was just so overwhelming. But you know, obviously, that's not the case. There's a huge shootout. The giant clicker was so freaking gross. He was a monster. You know, they got the freaking the fire, like the what do you call them, the flamethrowers. And for a second you're like, I don't even think that's going to defeat this freaking thing. That was a really cool scene right there. That thing was a monstrosity, but that scene was intense. I really was like, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen, and it wasn't. In the episode, it wasn't the worst thing that could happen, but it felt like there's nothing could be worse than what we're seeing right here. The town's devastated.
Yeah. And that's why I say, hey, I can trust Naughty Dog and I'll trust HBO because at the same time, it's like, hey, Tommy's not here. Okay, where is Tommy? Oh, Tommy's back at Jackson for this because this, like I said, this is not in the game.
No, they added this as an element. Yeah.
And it was worth it. Anthony, what did you think about that payoff? Was it worth it?
Okay. I genuinely thought Tommy was going to die.
Yeah.
I was like, I know this has been happening in the game, whatever, but I was like, I don't know because they're making, like right off the bat, I'm like, they're making so many huge changes.
Yeah.
They're gonna kill him. I don't know. And then like it wouldn't, like, I know The Last of Us is brutal, and I know like no one is safe, and there is no plot armor, but like it also wouldn't be surprising if they killed off like a main character in such an unceremonious way, like just a giant bloater just bashing his head in.
Yeah.
I did think it was cool at the end. I don't know if I'm sure you guys know this already, but the actor who played Tommy in the game, he got killed by the giant bloater in the last season. He was the guy with the gray hair who got he had the gun, and the bloater like charged him and ripped him in half.
No, okay.
Okay, yeah.
So when it like came out of the ground or whatever, and then it was the episode with Melanie Linsky, and it just like, so I was like, oh, so the Tommy in the show lived, like, but the Tommy from the game died. I thought it was pretty funny, but
yeah.
See, that's cool little things that they add into the show. That's such a little cool fact that people wouldn't know.
Yeah, you should spend way more of your life online. You'll learn a lot of terrible things. Like no, it was just really cool. Like, but also like when his flamethrower went out, I was just like, oh god damn it! Like who's going to save him? But then it just delayed and he died. Oh thank God.
Yeah.
I swear this episode messes with the viewer. It like intentionally messes with you. When you think one thing's going to happen, another thing happens. You think the worst has already happened. It's not the worst. It's definitely just messing with you the whole time.
Yeah, and then even gave us, you know, like I said, like the viewers that are used to knowing what's gonna happen. It's like, yeah, you don't know shit, buddy. I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? So, yeah, and we get to this scene, you know, the part where we go back to Joel and Dina and Abby, you know, getting back to the camp, you know, and she brings them into the lodge and introduces them to the team, and she introduces Dina, and then she says, "And this is Joel." Everyone's eyes kind of like locked in, and we're like, and we're off to the races. But you know, for me, like even when they made the first season, you know, just going into them, like, how are they going to do this show? and kind of having that play in the back of my mind, and like, and explain to Dave for this follow up of what's going to happen. Like, dude, like, I don't know how the fuck they're gonna do this, because Pedro Pascal has built Joel up so high for people that have never played this game before. So I'm like, and then when I heard that they had the season 3, I'm like, they're gonna bitch out and they're not going to do this. How, like, Tony, what did you think about it? Like, just knowing what was gonna happen, and when the show came out, did you think they were gonna fall through with everything that was gonna go down?
Oh yeah, I thought they were gonna. I was convinced. I was like, they're gonna kill him. They have to.
Mm,
Like, because it's such an important part of the storyline. It was more for me a question of when, because
mm,
having watched and been a Game of Thrones and having read the books like as they were out, I was like, HBO is not going to pull any punches. Like
mm,
they're gonna do what has to be done, um, like for the purpose of the story. But it was also kind of like they built up so much tension towards the end, like the last like 10 minutes or so, just
yeah,
it was like nail biting because even though I think I knew there was still a part of me that was like maybe they're not because it
yeah,
just kept taking so long, and then they kept the cuts to Ellie and the cuts back to Abby and to Joel and all of that. Like it just kept on building and building. I was like either they're gonna end it like on a cliffhanger and then we'll see it next week, or they're just gonna go with it. But either way, like to quote Joel, like get it over with.
yeah. Now, Dave, just you just experiencing this whole build up. What did you feel? Like, how did you feel like it was gonna go? Did you think this was gonna happen?
No, 100%. I did not think Joel was going to die. I was convinced he was going to get out of this somehow. I thought that maybe they would have some mercy about the fact that he saved her life, because he does
Hmm.
say that. She does not, and you learn that pretty quick. She just keeps moving on. You realize that this is a thing of uh personal. She's like personalized this for herself, right? And then I
Hmm.
was like, well, maybe Owen or somebody else is gonna like object to it, which you almost start to feel like they're going to, because she's taking this way too far. She's getting too personal. They're like, just do it.
Yeah.
Um, and she's like having the whole monologue, which goes on forever. So you're like, all right, well, maybe they'll stop her. They don't. Then Joel gets kind of frustrated and he's like, just fucking kill me or something,
Yeah.
like just fucking do it.
Yeah.
And she still doesn't even do it right away. She's like, you don't get to, yeah,
You don't get
you
the
know the
rush.
line.
No.
Yeah, not to, but it was like, yeah, there was every moment along the way, there was something that made me keep saying, like, oh, this is how he's gonna get out of this.
Yeah.
Then Ellie shows up, right? This is
Yeah.
how he's gonna get out of this.
Yeah. But it's so
No.
crazy though,
Nope.
because we said, like, what I mean, as a gamer, what I mean, it's so different. Like, this is something that happened like different, what I mean, like I stated in the episode before, like they brought Abby in way too soon, because that build up that you felt for him dying wasn't even on our mind. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that build up is like, that's like when they found Abby, that's when she came into the game. You know
Right.
what I mean? When she was out in the snow, that's when she was brought into the game for the first time. And it just came down to it. Like, like Joel dying was just out of nowhere. Dude, I remember when I was playing the fucking game, I'm just like standing there like, what the fuck just happened? I'm just like standing there, like holding the controller. I'm just like, this, like, is this like fake? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? Anthony, what went through your mind when Joel first was killed in the game for you?
Oh, dude, I couldn't believe it. Because like so I mean in the show we see how like long and drawn out it is. In the game, like I'm paraphrasing, but there's literally just like two lines of dialogue where they're like, "Oh, and this is Joel," and they
Mm,
all are like, "Oh," and then he's like, "Did you hear? How do you know who we are or something?" And then they go, "Yeah," and they just shoot him. Like they don't even
yeah,
explain anything.
Wow.
And
yeah,
then yeah, it's just so quick, and like he just like slumps over, and then the golf club comes out, but like like
yeah.
it's just so quick and instantaneous. And Abby doesn't give a long speech like or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
So like I don't know why they made the change on that end because I like not knowing, but at the same time it's also kind of like a different audience and a different way of
Yeah.
telling the story, and I do get it. And it's
Mhm.
again, it was also to build up tension because you had to buy time for Ellie to get there.
Yeah, and like to Brandon's earlier point, he's not just Joel right now. He's Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
So like this new audience would not have been okay with a 2-sentence dialogue and then a kill. So I feel like this was almost ceremonious in a way, like providing context, because I think they would have lost a ton of viewers had they not handled it a certain way. I mean, I'm sure there's already a ton of viewers super mad that are I don't want to see this if Pedro Pascal's not in it.
Yeah, they're done with it. On social media all day. Like, I didn't know this was gonna happen. Fuck this show.
Yep.
So I'm just like,
yep.
Hey, I don't know.
So I think they did it for the viewer's sake. That story change up right there for sure.
You had to.
But like this show, I'm sorry, this show yeeted his first kid like 20 minutes into the series. Like they're not gonna pull any punches. Like I'm sorry, like this isn't the story that you expect. But I noticed like in the scene where Ellie decides to go to the lodge, I really liked how she looked at Jackson like burning and on fire and decided to go for Joel.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like a really cool callback to like Joel like literally letting the world die to go save Ellie.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I thought it was a really cool parallel for that, but that was all I had in my notes there.
No, that's a good point. I like that.
That was good because it also touches on also when Abby's explaining to Joel, like I was 19 years old when I found my dad dead, and you see Pedro Pascal's character as Joel just kind of like not even looking at her, and he's kind of like spacing out and just thinking about Ellie because she's the same age at that time, and what's going through his head is like, holy shit, like you know what I mean, like it is what it is. But it's like Joel's not a bad guy. It's just like he's just trying to live his life because he saved her. You know what I mean? He saved her. He didn't have to save her. It's just like we said earlier, you're in a position when the world's just fucking falling apart and you don't know who to trust and how things are gonna go. And things just always don't go the right way. You know what I mean? So, and the build up with these two characters can just push you to any limit, you know what I mean? And that's what it has been for them, for Joel to sit there and just go in and just shoot everybody and do whatever to save her because he didn't agree with it anymore in the first season. Yeah. So, that's why, this kill like comes out of nowhere because the writing and the creativity of this story is just so special. And Dave, I think that you should definitely go back and just like look at the clips on YouTube of the gameplay and the cut scenes of that, or even just the build up, and you see how different it is.
Yeah,
and like how it affects you a little bit more. And like I said, it's different because you're controlling these players for about 20 hours of gameplay. You know what I mean? And so it's a different world now. It's like in this game now you're controlling Abby and Ellie. So the stories keep crossing over. In the first game, it was Ellie and Joel. Now we're gonna sit there and realize like what's going on with Abby and what's Abby all about. You know what I mean? Is she a bad person? So, is there anything else you want to add to this, Anthony?
Well, I kind of wanted to know more, like from Dave about like not knowing what you're getting into, because like I'm sort of the same way with again like House of the Dragon or like any show involving that world, like where I've read the source material 100 times, like whatever, and I love getting the perspective of people who aren't as familiar with it, because as annoying as it can be to like keep comparing it to the source material, it is also really cool to like get a fresh set of eyes.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know if you have like an idea of like what the major themes are gonna be, but I don't know what they're gonna be either because again, there's so many changes. It's like it's sort of taking on a life of its own.
Yeah.
And I'm very thrilled to see like where they go with it because like we know a lot of the major story beats, we just don't know how they're gonna get there and what they're gonna change if like or how it's gonna play out. Because there are characters like Tommy, I don't know how he's gonna react to this. I don't know how Dina's gonna react to it.
Yep.
Like or how anyone in the town's going to react to it, because they're all like in their own world right now. They all lost a ton of people. Like, is Joel just another body for them?
Yeah. Gonna have to rebuild. So what do you think, Dave? He wants to know, Dave, what do you think? How do you think the direction's gonna go?
I don't know. I think that I'm very interested, just like with the different storylines here. I don't next episode will tell me more about how I feel like it's gonna go. Because like you said, like I don't know if we're gonna see more of Abby right away or how long that's gonna be. I don't know if it's gonna be Ellie. I don't know how like Tommy in the town, like which they're gonna focus on first. So after next season, I'll have a better idea. Right now, I'm still just in the shock. Yeah. We lost Joel. Where the hell does the show go from there? It's like Walking Dead. Whenever you lost a big person, where do you go from now? So next episode, I think I'll get a better idea.
And I like how they, you know, handled the ending of the episode, because in the game, you know, when that one of the Abby's team members kicks Ellie.
Yeah.
In the game, like he knocks her out, and then like it just goes like black screen. And on the show, they took a different, you know, route and left Ellie awake and was able to crawl over to Joel and, you know, have that goodbye moment. You know what I mean? So like that was kind of cool to see on screen. What did you think about that, Anthony?
Oh my God, dude. Like Bella Ramsey, I mean, we already know they are an incredible actor, but good Lord, when they were like sobbing and just like pleading, like, please stop, it was like it evoked this like visceral like revulsion in me where I was like, this is so wrong. Like I hate everything about this. Like she was so good, and like it was like you can see like the like snot flying out of her, and like and it was like so real and so raw, and it's like I think maybe it has to do with sort of like maybe with her relationship with Pedro Pascal outside of the show too.
No.
But like it's also like to Gabe's point earlier, how like there is probably some unsaid things that happened between the two. And like now it's too late. And I mean not to get like too personal on here, but like when my father died, there was a lot of things we didn't say to each other. Same with my mom, and it was like, oh, like this is crazy. Like this is, and it's like I can't imagine being 19 and seeing that, like her character. So I don't know. I just want to give a shout out to Bella because oh my God, it was intense.
Yeah. No, great point.
So we're locked in on a wild ride. You know, that was season 2, episode 2, Through the Valley. We got it. You know, we're still processing it, you know, as a fan of the game and a fan of the show, and it hasn't been easy. So
yeah.
Oh, to add to the punch, did you catch that the song Through the Valley that they were singing was Ashley Johnson, who played Ellie from the game?
Yeah, and I seen an Easter egg too that Ellie actually had her jacket on from the first season, like when she was Yep. So there's a lot of little Easter eggs in this fucking show. You know, it's a lot of love and a lot of detail, and we're on a wild ride. And that was a wrap of episode 2. So, you know, definitely stay tuned because we're gonna finish this all the way to the end. You know what I mean? We're gonna be locked in. Tony, you can join us whenever you want because it was great having you on. You know, if you don't know who Tony is, go down to Buttonwoods Brewery. What nights do you work?
Wednesday, come for trivia. I work Thursday, come for whatever event we're doing. Friday, sometimes we have you guys. Saturday, and then that's it. But yeah, come have beer. We'll have a good time.
He's a good guy. Make sure you tip him well.
Yes.
He's going to be a regular when he can make it onto our walk on Last of Us, you know, conversation recap. For everybody listening, you know, definitely follow us. Stay tuned. Dave, you got anything else to add on this?
Yep. Nope. Just lock in for this ride. I feel like it's going to be a good one. So yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. And thank you again, Tony, for coming on, man. Appreciate you.
Anytime.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Game over.